Everybody's mic on?
Get the mic on?
I didn't do that one, no.
Well, I didn't turn it on only because no one's sitting here, but. All right.
Okay, we're good. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Village of Altamont ZBA meeting. Exits are to your left and back of me and straight out. Today is Tuesday, May 23rd at 2023 at 7 p.m. For the record, both the audio and video portions of this meeting are being recorded. My name is Deborah Hext. I'm the ZBA chair. At this time, I would like every board member to please introduce themselves, starting with Danny.
Danny Ramirez.
Barb Mulfelder.
Simon Litton.
Attorney Hyde Clark with Young Summer. James Sullivan.
Bob Freeman.
We are awaiting one more board member and our, who am I waiting for? Our building inspector. So also representing the village tonight, Gary, our building inspector, should be here shortly. Ginger Handa, our ZBA secretary, and Teresa Matulowicz, our village board liaison. There are a few items on tonight's agenda, two of which are public hearings. If you wish to speak at either of them, like I mentioned, please sign up. Again, that's so that if we have a number of people and it's getting to the point where I feel as though we have to time it, we will. I don't want to do that. I want to give everyone a chance to speak. And I ask that you, when you do get up to speak, you speak regarding the hearing that you're here for. The first hearing is not for Troy's subdivision, so don't get up and speak to the first hearing if that's not what you're speaking to, if that makes sense. Okay, with that, we'll start on the first item of discussion tonight, which is to review the application for a sign permit for Sunoco gas station at 200 Main Street. Do we have a representative for Sunoco here? Yes. Hi. Come on up to the microphone, state your name.
My name is Lauren Simons, and I'm representing GRJH for the Sunoco on 200 Main Street.
Can you just hold it a little bit?
Oh, here we go.
Whoop.
Perfect, thank you. Lauren Simons, representing the Sunoco on 200 Main Street.
Could you give a brief discussion of what you plan on doing? I know we have illustrations. Do you have anything that you could put up on the board so that the...
I do, I brought extra copies. Essentially, Sunoco is re-imaging their whole image. They're starting with a few stations, and we were picked as one of the stations in a small town to implement the re-imaging. It's not a tremendous change from what we have. It's just cleaning things up and making things look tidier for the town and to represent Sunoco. I do have, I'm not sure how, these aren't terribly large, but
Oh, okay.
do you want me to put them on the board or just sort of hold them up?
Yeah, no one's going to be able to see them on the board.
So,
But, yeah, just briefly.
or do, I can circulate it.
Yeah, you could
Would
do
you
that,
pr-
let people look at them.
Sure. This is a copy of the sign that we
Deb,
proposed.
can you
Wait, I
exit
need
and
to
speak
in the mic when you get
and address the board?
I was just going to give the rest of it to circulate. Because we also have some changes to the canopy as well.
So basically, you plan on changing the color of the face of the sign, the pole, right?
The pole, yes.
Changing that from blue to white, and also adding the LED gas prices.
The LED gas prices, the sign itself, where the pricing is, will actually be smaller than what it is now. Right now, it illuminates 60 inches. We're going to bring it down to 19 inches to make it less obtrusive.
The
And
sign itself, the sign face itself?
The price sign.
Okay,
the illuminated portion of it, yeah. And right now, we propose a 60-watt bulb, but if you feel that that's too bright, we can also put a 40-watt bulb on, just to accommodate neighbors and other businesses, whatever. The canopy itself is going to be refreshed with a stripe. The Sunoco will be on the two short sides, and then illuminated Sunoco on the long side. And that's essentially the gist of what we're doing to change, just to clean things up and get rid of the old sign that's been there for many years.
so the sign right now is blue. So if you're changing it to white, in my opinion, the brightness of that is going to be somewhat noticeable. My concern is coming into the village, the first thing you see now is the Sunoco sign. If you make that white, I worry about light trespass, I worry about blindness coming in, I worry about coming down the hill and seeing that, bright white light. I also worry about the character of the village and, kind of making, I understand Sunoco is changing their branding, but we have to consider the character of the village. And, saying that, to use Stewart's as an example, we did not allow Stewart's to put vinyl or lit anything on their canopy. We did not allow them to do a tall sign. That's why they have that nice little garden area. I like the fact that you're cleaning that whole property up. I understand you're going to paint it, there's going to be new pumps.
New pumps, and we're completely renovating inside and out.
Okay, all right. So they're my concerns. I just don't want to get into a situation where we look like Route 9 or we look like Route 20. We have a character that we have to uphold. And the changes that, you're recommending, in my opinion, I don't know, but we're an entire board. So I'd like to hear what everybody
Well, the
else.
illuminated portion of the sign is being reduced drastically. As the sign itself now is illuminated 61 inches. We're going to bring that down to only 19 inches. And again, we can take it from a 60-watt bulb to a 40-watt bulb to reduce any type of glare or intensity that it may portray. But I think, as the papers that I circulated will show the part that is illuminated. The rest will not be as it is now, 60 inches. It's down to 19 inches, so it's just a strip of the sign rather than,
So Sunoco will not be illuminated?
no, Sunoco will not be illuminated. No. So it makes it a little bit,
Shows 61 here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't understand, the document that you gave us
yes.
shows the width of the sign to be 61 inches.
Right, but the illuminated portion,
So this white, well, so you show it at night, you have an example of what it would look like at night.
only the prices.
Well, then, what's,
Show the audience too.
I'm sure you can't see it from there, but the submission shows what this would look like at night, and it's almost 61 inches wide, that's white.
But only the digital parts are illuminated.
So only the
Oh.
prices.
Only the prices.
Oh.
Yes. And that comes to 19 inches.
Your
So,
logo sign is the only thing that's gonna be white, and that's not illuminated.
That is
It's
not
just
illuminated.
The price is under it.
Correct, correct.
Okay, that's different than what we're seeing then.
Yep, it's just the digital, 19-inch portion of the digital sign that will be illuminated. Nothing else on that large sign, street sign will be.
How tall will it be going on the existing pole?
Yes, we're not changing the pole at all.
Do you know the foot candles of,
Yes, I was just double checking on that. The foot candles are, I will find that.
That's okay, that's all right.
I did write it down somewhere, and now I don't know where. But it doesn't exceed the candles of the town.
Village. Right, you're going by the village code, not the town, right?
The code, correct, yes, sorry.
So, just want to make
Yep,
sure.
that's what I meant, sorry. I did write it down.
You have three options. How do we read that? What, does that mean that you've not decided what you want to do, or?
No, it's really for the board to decide. If you, our intention is to put the 60-watt bulb, but if you feel that that might be too strong, we can go to the 40-watt bulb. There won't be any additional electricity needed for the sign itself. It's a plug LED. And the main ID, the Sunoco, is white, but because of the, whether we use the 40 or the 60, we can reduce it in that capacity.
Why would there be a bulb in it at all if you're not going to illuminate it?
Well, it's the LED.
Oh,
It's
okay.
the LED.
But that's red, right? Those-
No, that's white.
So if it's only the prices that are going to be illuminated, it shows here like red LED.
Well, that's an option. If the board would prefer red, we can do red. We can do green, we can do white. Whatever, we just want it illuminated, but if you don't like the color scheme, we can go to plain white. We can have the LED color, whatever color the board prefers.
The option number one, it looks like the prices are white and they'd be backlit from inside, right?
Correct.
And then option number two looks like it's a digital with the red or
With the
green
red or
or
the
whatever
green.
color.
Correct.
And that's
Okay.
the one that you're also offering the cash.
With the cash price.
Okay.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
And the other option was leave it as it is and change it manually.
And change it manually, correct. Yes.
So it wouldn't be illuminated at all, or it would just
No,
be
it would be similar to
what it is now?
what Cumberland Farms has, et cetera, yes.
For the canopy, one thing to note about our code is that nothing can go over the roof line. So the one option looks like the arrow of the Sunoco is above the canopy roof line.
This one?
That's it. Oh, so you're talking about the red portion of it
Yeah.
extending beyond? We can sever that so that it doesn't exceed the roof line. That wouldn't be a problem.
The only other, issue and interpretation of the code is, we do not allow signs on a roof. So the interpretation would be, is a canopy a roof? And, I defer to counsel on that. I know we use that, and I'm sorry to keep referring to Stewart's, but a precedent was set there.
Sure.
I know that when we had Stewart's, we did not allow them to put anything up on the canopy. You can see that it's not like that, there's nothing there. So I just want to make sure that we're not getting ourselves into setting a precedent on anything as far as signage or brightness or gaudiness, and I'm not saying it's
No,
gaudy.
I understand.
I'm just
I
saying
understand.
that this is Altamont, it's not Latham, it's not Guilderland, it's a small little village.
Sure.
And that's part of what we have to be concerned about. Would you consider anything like Stewart's has, as far as building a little area that you have your signage of your gas and your diesel, or your regular gas and diesel price, cash, credit, as opposed to a sign?
You mean the decals on the canopy itself?
No, I mean the actual, instead of having it on the pole, having a small little area, same place that the sign is now, but just like a little garden area that displays your cash price, your credit card price, your diesel price, your regular gas price.
It is an option, but with the new reimaging of Sunoco, they're really trying to have everyone uniformed and with the same look. They understand that there are issues with towns as far as the canopy goes and graphics on the canopy, but aside from that, they're trying to at least keep everything up to par with their new imaging.
Anybody?
Refresh my memory, LEDs allowed in the village?
I'm sorry? I didn't hear.
The LED lighting, is that allowed, or signage? Okay. Now, mention about the foot candle, but at what distance from the fixture and/or lighting?
That is within the town scope, within the allowed candle.
Anybody else have any questions or concerns? This isn't something that's going to be approved or disapproved tonight. Anything that goes before the ZBA, we're going to have a public hearing on it anyway.
Sure.
And, I expect some input from the public on this. And Ginger, this will be out on the website at some point, so people can come in and look at the renditions of the different options.
It's on the website.
Is it now?
Mhm.
Okay, all right.
There's two, just so you know, for this meeting, it was so much material, there's two sets of materials on the website that both have tonight's date on them. So the second one, it says 2 of 2, that's this whole package of, if you want to look at it.
And it does show all the different price signs, the options, the decals, the lighting, and everything. It gives you a clear view of it.
Okay, I know one thing I would like to see or have you ask is if you could do something, a little less obtrusive.
Okay?
And make it, that whole area there, I know you're going to improve it. I know you're going to paint. I know you're going to do all types of improvements, but I think an improvement really would be a nice little garden area or brick area or whatever you wanted to do, and have the signage there. That would be, that's just me, again. I've got, 7 other people here that can chime in.
You mean forming a garden around the pole itself?
No, eliminating the pole
Eliminating the pole.
and doing something like, I think the one in Voorheesville has it. Stewart's has it. A number of stations are going to that look so that it's not, in your face. It's more conducive to certainly Main Street, Altamont.
Well, Sunoco would have something similar to that. It would be lower. I can check with them, but I think as far as it was going to be ideal to use the pole that we have, just because it exists. So whether we can do something closer to the ground might be more appealable on the same pole. And then, as you say, build a garden idea around it. That might be an option.
Okay, well, thank you. At that, can I have a motion then to set a public hearing for June 24th? Is it? Oh, I turned my phone on.
That looks like June 27th.
Okay,
27.
so June 27th, does that work with you?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Could I have a motion then to set a public hearing for June 27th to review Sunoco Gas Station 200 Main Street?
So moved?
James?
I'll second.
Simon? Roll call, please.
Okay. Board Member Rivera.
In favor.
Board Member Milton.
In favor?
In favor.
Board Member Sullivan,
In favor?
Board Member Freeman,
In favor.
Board Member Witham,
In favor?
In favor. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Next topic on the agenda is to review the application, is to read the legal notice, which we will do, as a request for area variance submitted by Mark Finuelli at 36 Sanford Place to allow parking of a 2016 enclosed trailer and a driveway on side of garage.
All right. This is the notice of public hearing that was published. Please take notice that the Village of Altamont Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on May 23rd, 2023, at 7 p.m. at the Altamont Village Community Room, 115 Main Street, Altamont, New York, to hear all interested persons on the proposed application for an area variance to locate a 2016 enclosed trailer in the side yard of a parcel located at 36 Sanford Place, tax map number 37.14-5-42 in the village's R20 zoning district. Pursuant to village law, section 355-22F, no trailer may be parked within the front or side yard at any time. All persons desiring to speak either on behalf of or in opposition to said proposed area variance shall be heard by either attending the public hearing or by submitting written comments in advance of the public hearing to the ZBA secretary. Copies of the application materials are available for review at the offices of the village clerk located at 115 Main Street, Altamont, New York, 12009, and will be available on the village website by Friday, May 26, 2023.
Okay, thank you. That opens the public hearing on this variance request. Does anybody want to speak regarding that? No? Okay, Mark? Is Mark here? Okay. Oh, there he is, way back there. Want to just give a quick rundown? I think you explained it well last time.
Yeah, my name's Mark Finuelli. I live at 36 Sanford Place. I got some dimensions. It's like 14-foot trailer, 95 inches high, like 100 inches wide. And it's tucked right in the side of my house. It's been there for 30 years, and when I found out I wasn't in compliance, I applied for the variance.
And what is the reason that you can't put it in your backyard?
I just didn't want to have to, I got mature trees, and if I tried to go around those, I'd be on not my, my neighbor's property. The neighbor on the side that the trailer sits, he's fine with it. He wrote a letter stating that, and that was my main concern. But all my neighbors are pretty much in agreement. They have no problem with it.
And we received a number of letters in support. Looking at the recommendation from the Albany County Planning Board, they defer for local consideration, which basically means it's up to our board. One thing that, the board has to be concerned about is setting any type of precedent when it comes to a variance such as this. But, looking at the New York State regulations on variances, one thing that we can take into consideration is, do you have to take down mature trees? Is that feasible? Where would it be more visible? And I think you had said in the last meeting, if you moved it to the backyard, it would actually be more visible from 3 sides.
It'd be visible on all sides. Yeah. Right now, it's completely blocked, mostly on all sides. Once you throw in the foliage, summertime foliage. But the cars I park in front of it, it sets on the side. It was always, that's how when I built the house, I put the driveway there for that reason.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mark going forward?
Let's see. I believe last month when we were talking about this, we were going to put some conditions on it that would not keep this variance attached to the property.
We can't do that.
Oh,
So granting a variance would run with the property, you're not granting it to a specific person.
so this variance is permanent?
It
So-
is.
So the next person who buys the house can park his trailer there?
Correct.
Next person might use it as basketball court. That's what it was for the first, when my kids were little, it was the basketball court too.
Now, I think, though, we did say that if he wants to change the size of the trailer itself, or now he wants to put a, 27-foot RV there, he would have to come back before us.
Yeah, so this applies to a certain piece of equipment being located there?
Yes.
Because the variance, when you're going to go through your factors and considering impact to the neighborhood and what the site is, you're granting that based on a specific trailer and what that looks like. So although you're not granting it to a person per se, this variance will allow the next person to have a similar sized trailer, but does not allow just anything to be parked in the side yard.
I also, if I am correct, it has to be registered, it has to be something that is used or whatever. It's not something parked there like a hay wagon or whatever, something that's, I mean, I've been by, I went and took a look at it, it's nice, neat, it's registered, gets used, it gets parked back where it's supposed to. I mean, yeah, if now you wanted to go back and put a fifth wheel, that might be an issue for sure, but, yeah, and it's all registered and.
Yeah, I got the
inspected,
registration
all
and
that,
I
yeah.
wrote down some specs, like,
Yeah.
I actually measured in, with the tongue, it's like maybe 18 feet long with this 14-foot trailer.
And it's also used for business, I
No,
believe.
it's totally recreational. Me and my son race motocross, we go every weekend racing dirt bikes.
Could you just clarify, it doesn't follow the owner, it follows the property, but you were saying that it follows a specific piece, like, if there was a different trailer, or instead of a trailer, a motor home, would that still be considered if it's the same size?
So I wouldn't think it would apply to a motor home, just because that could be a different impact, visual impact.
So same with like a boat
similar,
trailer?
yeah.
So
So-
basically, this is for a 14-foot trailer in that spot,
Correct.
Enclosed trailer.
enclosed, okay.
It was kind of made for it. It wouldn't really take any bigger than that.
Well, and that's the concern, that somebody, that area won't take anything bigger than that, but if the next person comes in
Right.
and, parks a huge, 27-foot luxury liner there or something, then we have a concern.
Because the board is going to consider whether it's substantial, and I think part of the application is the fact that it's tucked back and kind of fits that. So anything larger, you may not have that same opinion, so that's why it's specific to a certain size.
The trees were there for that reason, but it also provides us with privacy in our backyard. My wife's big on her yard, so I didn't want to take down trees, put another drive in. We got heavy clay there. So off-season, you got heavy clay, trailer tire thing would sink right in, so I'd have to put a drive in, and I toyed with moving it off the property, but we talked about that. It's just too much value there, too much risk to have it not on my property.
You can't keep an eye on it either.
No, I use it all the time. I use it all the time.
My last question is, if this were to be approved, does it sort of hamstring us in consideration for further variances from other people with similar situations?
It
Maybe
could.
not exact, but similar.
It could. That's why the uniqueness of this, weighs heavily, because, again, if you go through those documents that I had sent to everyone, one factor is taking down mature trees. Would it be more visible if they followed the code? If those answers are yes, then we have a unique situation. If someone else comes in with that exact same situation,
Well, I think that's why we have the code though, too, is to go by situation to
We'd have to go
situation.
situation by situation.
You know, sometimes it'll vary.
Right, because you're right, James, it's a concern, because I know a lot of people, you know, have a concern about doing this. And unfortunately, again, you know, we try to keep everything neat here. And it can get pretty gaudy fast. No one has anything else. Should I go through this part of it?
Yep, we have to work through that, yep.
Okay, so going through the document on area variances, the first one is whether an undesirable change. Mark, you can relax.
Sit down.
Thank you. Whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting the area variance. How do we all feel about that? We're not there yet. All right. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. I think he looked into other possibilities as far as going off-site. He was a little worried about that since he's got tools and everything else. He can't put it anywhere else because of the trees, so I don't think it can be. Whether the area variance is substantial, I don't think so. Anybody? Stop me if anybody else doesn't agree.
Well, you want to step back one? It was self-created hardship, and we're talking about vegetation that can be replaced, moved, removed, altered, because we're looking at possibility of having the trailer behind the house line, the back line, right? Versus in front or alongside. So if it can be done other way, there is an option there.
Yeah, so the self-created is the fifth factor,
Right.
so we will get to that one. But I think the board should discuss whether or not there were other options. I think the application sounds like it's more visible in the rear yard. And Chair also mentioned the not being able to potentially be located off-site. So, if there's a consensus that there are alternatives that were not looked at, they should be discussed at this point. But
Does anyone feel that we or Mark didn't look into alternate measures? Danny?
No, the biggest impact would be to the neighbor, and right now, the neighbor's complacent with it, does not have a problem. And I understand that when he spoke, that putting in the backyard would, be much more visible all the way around. So I'm just bringing it out there that, there is an alternative.
the board could also require as a condition of approval that the screening remain in place. So if something were to happen to the existing screening on the side yard, that it be replaced in kind, if that's a concern.
Yeah, we can put that in the
Yeah,
resolution.
to put that in the
idea.
resolution.
Yeah, all right, good, that's good, yeah. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. Again, I think where he has it now is probably the least visible impact, but I welcome any other comments, just so that we have them in writing and in the minutes. No? Okay, and Danny, here's yours. Number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created and which consideration should be relevant to the decision of the Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. I think we all agree it is self-created. He wants to keep it on the side, which does not comply with our code. But considering we've had letters of support from many of his neighbors, and we will consider each time someone comes before us as a unique situation, even though we do have to refer to precedent. That's the law. the uniqueness of this situation, I feel, you know, could be different than anyone else coming before us. It may not be, and if it's not, we'll have to just take that into consideration. Everybody good with that?
Yes.
All right, so, resolution for the findings, right?
Yep.
All right, so, should I do that or the EAF first?
We should do neg deck first.
We do that. All right, so, got to go through the EAF form, and then, once we do that, we can do a neg deck. Everybody ready with their EAF form? Okay, number one is, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use or zoning regulation? I think we have a number 4 on that. Right, which is little or no impact. Everybody agree on that? Good point. Yeah. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing, please?
So moved.
Danny?
Second,
Barb?
second,
In favor.
in favor.
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
In favor. Sorry about that. Thank you, Tressa. Okay, number one, will proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? No or small impact may occur. Everybody agree with that? Number two, will proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the land? I have a no or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? I have a no or small impact may occur. 4, will proposed action have an impact on environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? I have a no or small impact may occur. 5, will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No, small, or little impact may occur. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No or small impact may occur. Will proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies or public or private water treatments? I have no to both of those. Will proposed action impair the character or quality of important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Wow. I have a no or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No or small impact. Will proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No or small impact. Will the proposed action create a hazard or environmental resources or human health? No or small impact. Okay, so, I guess I'll read this.
So based on the answers that we just had on part 2, and there being a no to small impact on all the factors, the board should consider a motion to adopt a negative declaration that there will not be a significant environmental impact by approving this variance request.
I have a motion.
I make that motion.
Barb?
Second.
Please. Danny? Roll call.
Board Member Rivera.
Approve, in favor.
Board Member Moulton.
In favor?
Board Member Litton.
In favor.
Board Member Sullivan.
In favor?
Board Member Freeman.
In favor?
Board Member Wickham.
In favor?
And Chairperson Hess.
In favor.
Thank you.
Okay, now, we're getting there, everybody. I know you're probably all falling asleep out there. We're getting there. I'm going to read the resolution to adopt a neg declaration. Whereas the zoning board of appeals for the village of Altamont received an application from Mark Vanuelli, applicant, for an area variance to locate a 2016 enclosed trailer in the side yard of a parcel located at 36 Sanford Place in the Village R20 zoning district, and whereas pursuant to Village Law 355-22F, no trailer may be parked within the front or side yard at any time, and whereas the applicant proposes to park the trailer on a paved area on the side of his garage on the east side of the property, and whereas the applicant submitted an application for area variance on March 16, 2023, and whereas the applicant has prepared a short environmental assessment form, EAF, pursuant to the mandates of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, Article 8 and 6, Part 617, and whereas the Zoning Board of Appeals has duly considered the contents of the EAF and completed Parts 2 and 3 thereof, and determines that the proposed action will not result in any significant environmental impacts. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby authorizes the following of the negative declaration attached hereunto and made part of hereof. According to Seeker 6 NYCRR Part 617, whereupon this resolution was adopted by the Village of Altamont Zoning Board of Appeals. Could I have a motion for adopting this resolution, please? Anybody?
I make a motion.
Thank you.
Everybody wake up.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Simon. Roll call, please.
Board Member Ramirez.
Approved.
Board Member Moulton.
Approved.
Board Member Litton.
Approved.
Board Member Sullivan.
Approved?
Board Member Freeman.
Approved.
Board Member Wickham.
Approved.
Chairperson Hess.
Approved. Okay, now the only thing I have left here, and we have to, thank you. We have to add a couple things to this, right?
Yes, if you want to add the screening condition.
And remaining, that it'll always remain registered. And if it, the size of the trailer or anything changes, he has to come back? Okay. Did you get those changes? Although, you'll probably be doing this. Yeah. Okay, so the next resolution is findings and decision, request for an area variance. Whereas the zoning board of appeals for the village of Altamont received an application from Mark Vanuelli for an area variance to locate a 2016 enclosed trailer in the side yard of a parcel located at 36 Sanford Place in the Village R20 zoning district. And whereas pursuant to Village Law 355-22F, no trailer may be parked within the front or side yard at any time. And whereas the applicant proposes to park the trailer on a paved area on the side road of his garage on the east side of the subject property. And whereas the applicant submitted in an application for an area variance on March 16, 2023. And whereas the ZBA has reviewed the application together with additional information submitted by the applicant, and whereas the ZBA duly noticed and held a public hearing on the application on May 23rd, 2022, at which time all members of the public wishing to speak were heard, and whereas the ZBA referred the application to Albany County Planning Board, and whereas the ZBA has reviewed and considered all public hearing comments that were received on the application, the Albany County Planning Board's response to New York GML 239, referral and additional information relevant to the application of applicable standards of review. Now therefore be it resolved as follows by the Planning Zoning Board of Appeals on the Village of Altamont, Albany County. The ZBA has considered the standard for area variance contained in the Village of Altamont zoning law, section 355-52 D3, and hereby adopts the determination of findings annexed hereunto. The ZBA does hereby grant the application for a variance to permit an enclosed trailer in the side yard of a parcel located at 36 Sanford Place. Also, we want to add a couple conditions to this resolution. that the screening currently will remain in place. If it is to die or has to be taken down, something of same reasonable size should be put back up. The trailer should always remain registered, and the size cannot be changed, the trailer size cannot be changed unless it comes back before the board. One thing I would like to ask, Mark, is that you bring a copy of the registration to the office when you have a chance, so that we can make a copy of it and keep it in your file. Okay, so the conditions, okay, the ZBA authorizes and requires the ZBA chairman and secretary and attorney to take the appropriate steps to effectuate the resolution, including any filing and distribution requirements. Whereupon this resolution was declared adopted by the Village of Altamont Zoning Board of Appeals. Can I have a motion to approve the variance, please?
I'll motion.
Robert? Yep. Thank you. Second?
A second.
Barb? Roll call, please.
Board Member Rivera.
In favor.
Board Member Moss.
In favor?
Board Member Becker.
In favor.
Board Member Sullivan.
In favor?
Board Member Freeman.
In favor.
Board Member Rickman.
In favor?
Chairperson Hess.
In favor.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, do we want to take a 5-minute break? Everybody want to take a 5-minute break? Go to the restroom, maybe? It is 7:47. Ginger, 5-minute break, 7:47. Give me a chance to get out of the water here.
These just came in today.
Did I put that out? I'm sorry.
This is interesting. This letter, he references the Native Americans.
What?
He references the Native Americans and the Pecan Mohawk tribes that were in the area. And he's talking about the wildlife. There's so much, he lives.
Nobody's ever said I'm not proud enough.
He's talking about all the wildlife that's
Okay.
there.
Oh, it's a loss in a lot of ways to build there, but on the other hand, the village adopted a plan to say this should be R-15. All right, so,
Interesting.
Thank you for your patience, everyone. Just the step that we are, required by law. Nothing's getting approved tonight.
Yeah.
And, like we were talking about the other day. 30 days notice has to be for the coordinated service review. You're the good block. I'm not, I'm letting you do this.
I think it's real interesting that Sunoco is changing their colors. Blue has been trademarked for ages.
It's, I definitely want input on this one because what we did to Stewart's and what Stewart's looks like is beautiful. Can you see coming in the first thing you see now? And I noticed it the other day because of the application. I'm like, wow, the first thing you see when you get the Gun Club Road is that Sunoco's. So can you imagine that a different color? And then the wrap on the canopy, which I think we will push that one.
Well, we don't have the Crown's House anymore.
I do feel for some of these businesses, bigger buildings that get pushed up.
Oh,
We
yeah.
have that wall.
Yeah, no, I know.
Could we, if necessary, collect the items belonging to the firemen's?
Paul, I think he's here. He
Yeah,
was
he's
here.
here. He's here. But we'd be allowed to
Yep.
ask him. Oh, okay, 'cause I had a couple.
Who's here for the applicant?
Yeah. This gentleman here is here, this gentleman is, and Troy was here. Troy's here. He's sitting behind the guy in the yellow is our engineer.
Oh, okay.
So I asked him to attend tonight.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Who's the guy? That's Brad, our engineer. Good?
Are we going to go through engineers?
I'm going to ask him to speak to that. Yes. Thank you.
Are you gonna do the engineer before then the public hearing?
I'm gonna ask the applicant to come up and, you know, give his spiel. And then I'm going to ask Brad to address his concerns so that the applicant then. But, should I do that?
That was one of the questions.
No, that's all right. Okay, is everyone back? Everybody's ready? Okay. So I think everybody is here for the variance submitted by CM Fox Living Solutions, LLC Troy Miller, to allow the creation of 4 new keyhole lots with approximately 16 feet of road frontage, property at SBL, that's our tax map, 37143-6.1.
So just to give a quick update on CM Fox tonight and procedurally how we're going to work through this, we will open the public hearing. This is going to be the first opportunity for the public to comment on the application. There's no plan to close that public hearing tonight. There will be no vote or action taken on this application tonight. The Zoning Board of Appeals has declared itself lead agency, but the applicant has not provided the distribution list, which is required for seeker. We have to notify all of the involved or interested agencies about our declaration to be lead agency. Once that is submitted, that starts a mandatory 30-day period by which those involved or interested agencies could contend either that they should be lead agency for purposes of seeker, or that they consent to this board serving for seeker. So again, this is going to be the first opportunity for you to make your public comments. No decision tonight, but we will afford the opportunity. And before we open the public hearing, we are going to give the applicant a chance to introduce the project, go over anything that they would like to go over. And the village has also retained an engineer, so we'll also allow the engineer to speak tonight. And at that point, we will open the public hearing and hear comments. So that's just to give the public a reasonable notice of how we're going to go through procedurally. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, can you address anything that's changed since the last meeting?
As far as the proposed design, I don't think anything has been changed. Last time we did talk about a sidewalk. One of the things that Troy is willing to do is to build a sidewalk along the south side of Schoharie Plank Road. If the variances are granted, I know there's a lot of issues with pedestrian traffic on Schoharie Plank Road, the bridge that comes over at the end of Euclid Avenue over the creek. That could certainly alleviate some concerns as far as, traffic and pedestrians walking up and down Schoharie Plank Road. The variance request, it's for a variance request. The code requires 30 feet of frontage for a keyhole lot. we're proposing four keyhole lots here on Schoharie Plank Road. They approximately have like 16 and a half feet each for the frontage. Minimum frontage requirement is 15 feet by state law. The village requires 30 feet, therefore we're asking for a variance to go down to around 16 and a half feet for the four of them and create one common driveway to service all four houses, which would just, let me grab this.
Excuse me, Steve, can you step forward? Otherwise it
Oh,
goes off
okay.
the video.
Sure.
It's got to be a little bit closer to the, and the same thing with the, thank you. You can keep it so that.
Say, yeah, just say when.
That's good.
Okay. The reason the applicant wants to do this is there's enough room in here to put a public highway in, where it's more than 60 feet wide. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to put a public highway in there. We just want to do a common driveway for the four lots. And it would be just limited to those four houses. And we also talked about, there'd be no further subdivision with any of the four lots here. So this would pretty much be it. So essentially, that's what it is. We've talked with the village in previous meetings, and the village hasn't been, they don't seem to want a public highway there, because they'd have to maintain it, over the years and whatnot. And the common driveway is just, it's less of an impact overall for that spot there.
Now, talking about the sidewalk and the footbridge, I know there's been a lot of concern and a lot of speculation,
Yes.
rumor, that Troy's going to take the footbridge out and put a through road. Could you please?
No,
quell
no,
rumor right
that
now?
is not going to happen. The bridge is going to stay there. It's always going to be there. The bridge is approximately like right here. It comes out, and then you go up and down Schoharie Plank Road. He's willing to put money in escrow to build a sidewalk along Schoharie Plank Road up to Western Avenue. If we get the variances, it's kind of like well, I don't know, he's just willing to do that because the concerns have been brought up about pedestrians.
Do we have an easement there, Jeff?
Yeah.
You're talking on the creek side? Are you saying for the sidewalk?
The easement?
No,
Yeah,
just-
I don't know if you have an easement. I almost wonder if the right-of-way of Euclid Avenue goes right to Schoharie Plank Road, so it's part of, a public highway. That would be my guess right now.
It'd be more of a right of way
So that we could put a sidewalk in?
on the creek side. Couldn't put it on the other side,
Right.
it'd be right over top of the waterway.
Well, I mean, there's other considerations about that too. You'd have to look in whether or not it's on the DEC protected. I don't know where does that creek, is that part of the Bozenkill Creek? It is.
It's a tributary.
So then-
Yeah, jurisdiction for like DEC, the Army Corps of Engineers, would be essentially like to the top of the bank.
Although it's private land,
Well,
wouldn't it be,
It'd be in our right of way.
yeah.
it would-
Yeah, I think the footbridge to Euclid Avenue is on the public right-of-way
Right.
already. And there's nothing's gonna change with that. Nothing's gonna happen with that. It's gonna stay.
Maybe you could correct me on this, but I thought that as a tributary to the Bozenkill, there should be no vegetation disturbance within 100 feet of the center line of the creek.
Well, that's why I brought that up.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I don't think it's to the top of the bank. I think it's 100 feet from the center line.
I think that's our code,
That's our code.
yes.
Yeah. I remember that
I do
came up
too.
with the Stewart's thing.
Yeah, that's our code. Obviously, that's further on down the line, but it's something that, before promising that we're going to put in a sidewalk, we have to do a little bit of legwork and,
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want everybody to know too, you know, we're asking for a variance, and the granting of the variance does not approve the project. It still has to go before the board as the planning board. The town designated engineer has to review all the design, you know, so I've seen comments about the flood zone, stormwater runoff, groundwater. We've addressed most of those things in our plans and our report. Also, the construction traffic for the building of these 4 houses here, on our plans and in our report, all the construction for these houses back here are going to come across the temporary construction road from Western Avenue and essentially like work our way back out. So nothing, no construction equipment, supplies for building houses are going to come down Schoharie Plank Road at all. You know, we know it's narrow, we know, I don't know what's under it for subbase, but that many big trucks would probably, you know, destroy the road. So that is not going to happen either. No construction traffic on Schoharie Plank also.
Would that include the driveway that's considered, that entryway?
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Simon?
No, Danny.
I thought
Would
Simon.
that also consider the driveway that you're installing there?
Yes, the driveway, it'll be designed in conformance, you know, for everything, you know, right up to fire trucks and whatnot. I believe it has to be 20 feet wide, which is much narrower than like a public highway going in through there. So that allows us to keep more vegetation on the sides, because the 2 adjoining owners, the properties, the houses are quite close to the strip there. So we're trying to maintain as much of the vegetation and trees that are there now, as opposed to like, you know, putting in a public road and widening the whole thing out.
Anything you take down has to be replaced.
Okay?
If you take, you know, that's in our code. If you take any trees down where applicable, I mean, you take a tree down where the house is going to be, obviously, but
Yeah.
if you do take trees down along that driveway.
Right,
Or
okay.
any vegetation, you have to replace it.
Okay. Another thing that Troy has proposed, it's not shown on the maps, but we've talked about it, is along the rear of the properties on Schoharie Plank Road, is to create like a 20, 25, 30-foot wide buffer zone, which would essentially be like, you know, a no clear zone that could just grow up naturally, and that would create a buffer between the existing houses and the new houses.
Or is there any plans to put in like deciduous trees or evergreens or something that, you know, the no-cut zone, I get that, but that, you know, that's only good in the summer. Any other time of the year, it's going to be, you know.
Yeah, that I
an
don't
impact.
know. Have you discussed any plantings at all?
Good answer.
Plantings shown on page C-130 of the plan set that shows proposed deciduous with coniferous, all native to this area, along this area.
Come up here and say
Yeah.
that, Rowan, in front of the
Say your
mic.
name, and, I mean, we
Yeah.
know you, but
That's okay.
Hi, Ro Andrus, project manager for Walrath Surveying. This is page C-110. On page C-130 of this plan set, we have proposed plantings along the back line here. Again, both deciduous and coniferous trees native to this area to increase the privacy of both the new homes and the existing homes.
okay, thank you. Okay, thanks, Steve, I guess.
Okay.
Brad, would you like to address some of the things of your concerns?
Sure.
Please? I do this before the public hearing because I think you might be answering some of the questions that everybody has, including the board. You know, I know based on some of the letters that we've gotten, you know, flooding and runoff and so on and so forth are main concerns.
Yeah, you know, particularly,
Can you say your,
sorry, Brad Grant with Barton and Judas. This is like much of Altamont. It drains, you know, from the hills towards towards Gilliland Center. There's a general existing drainage pattern that this all moves this way. There is the creek down here, and low areas tend to drain towards the creek. Some do go towards Marion Court. There's some low areas along here. The plans are basically to, address the variance application, and there's further engineering to do. There has been some. This project will get water and sewer from existing utilities, except that because of the topography of this site, there'll be grinder pumps that will pump up to existing sanitary manhole here and down here.
And what does that ensure?
That ensures, that the preferred method is by gravity. No power is required, but sometimes the topography doesn't lend itself to that. This is a very flat site for the most part, particularly in the middle here. So the pressure sewers, and they're around. The best ones are the ones proposed, which are Environment One, made in Niskayuna. And they're a solid mechanism to grind and to also pump your sewage to a gravity sewer. This all ends up down in the plant ultimately. Water connections would be here and likely there. And then individual services, 3/4 inch or 1 inch, depending on requirements, would be for the individual homes. Stormwater needs to, there will be an increase in imperviousness on this site. You build houses, you put driveways in, you have patios and garages. That's naturally a well-grassed field right now that's probably been hayed over the years. This is about where that hedgerow goes, and there's a small opening there. I walked it the other day, and they had done a number of test pits there. Soils are typical Altamont soils. They're a little heavy. They're not horrible. They can be worked with. Good stormwater management is trying to mimic the existing patterns to the extent possible, which basically goes down to infiltration or small holding basins or rain gardens that help to hold some of the excess runoff.
And is that in the plans to do the rain gardens and the catch
Not yet,
basins?
not yet. That's forthcoming. There was responses to my comments about that they want to get through the area variance because if this whole thing changes, so would any design that you would do. So it's not a reach to want to get through the planning and the layout part of it, and then the engineering will follow.
It's still important to hear
Oh,
that,
absolutely. Absolutely.
going forward, something, like I said, it's a concern of ours, it's a concern of many of the residents.
Yep.
So I want to make
Yep.
sure that, I know I've read your responses, and
Yeah.
I don't know if the public has had a chance to see them.
Yeah. But, Steve had authored a letter in response to my comments. And once I get my glasses on here,
You want mine?
probably.
See, that's why you have nothing on the top, well, up here too, but on
Yeah.
my glasses.
So I'm just going to go in order.
Yeah, perfect.
I didn't have comments on each one of the responses, but I authored a review letter on February 21st of this year, and Steve's letter is May 9th in response to these. For this concept of having driveways come up, a common driveway coming up a portion on both ends here, there needs to be agreements that there's common access and rights to it and common obligations to maintain it. including not just the driveway itself, but any drainage that might be a part of this. In looking at that, the draft maintenance agreement, it seemed, and that would go with the land, as, you know, in perpetuity. But the one thing I would want to include in the language is inserting a couple words is that, and drainage. Not just the gravel, not just the driveway, but generally drainage. Probably the profile of those driveways, that'll come later, but the, would not want to dam up water. And basically allow it to run off similar in a sheet flow pattern in this direction. So that was a comment on the maintenance agreements. You know, here's the $100 one, and I think the plans now say a 16-foot wide driveway, but the, I think in the fire code, you really want 20 foot for an apparatus, and that's gonna come later. You know, you would have to have turnarounds, ability for a fire truck to get in here and get out of there. There's hydrants down here. There's a hydrant there. And generally, you, the standard, depending on where you are, is either 500 or 600 foot hose length to be able to put out a fire. So if you go 500 to 600 feet, I did a rough arc through here, and there's like one small sliver of land, which is probably the backyards and not necessarily where the homes are themselves, which would be the primary thing to put out. But the it's kind of maxed out as far as the separation of those. But there are existing hydrants there, and you know, has considerations of a singular access. This is my comment. Has further considerations of a singular access via public road from Western Avenue. Is there a possibility of getting a public road in here like a cul-de-sac that you could service all of the lots and not even need this? Still would need it for utilities, and I don't think an underground pipe is what would, you know, concern people on here. A driveway, you know, that's in traffic on it is another matter. Steve already talked about construction access. That's really verboten. This road won't stand up to concrete trucks times 4 times all the materials that are gonna come in. Whether through here or through here, which I would prefer, construction access, come in here and basically build your way out of here. Start with the back and work your way up this way. Coming in through here close to these properties, no reason to be that close. You got, this is wide open. So, can still get there to do what's needed. You know, is there a way to reduce some of the dependence on Schoharie Plank Road? Even if you did 3 lots coming out this way and got one of these to turn in the other direction, it's not inconceivable, but you're not going to get a 30-foot frontage. You got 63 feet. The only way you're going to do it is 2. And right now 4 are going to it. Right, so if you would kind of transfer the need for variances either here or back here.
Right.
You know, they did some great things here because, you know, property lines get old enough, people go over them and encroach. Not intentionally, but there's been some adjustments in the, basically giving some land and kind of swapping out some land here. You know, a house is right on its property line there, so there are some lot line adjustments that do both the existing homeowners good and the development proposal. But
Does anybody on the board have anything for Brad? Because I know that, I'm sure Brad's gonna be on the witness stand when the public hearing is open, so.
Witness stand. Steve brought me up this map yesterday, and I kind of talked about some of the things, and, it's not inconceivable to, instead of having Lot 5 come out here, rework some of these property lines such that Lot 4 could accommodate a common driveway for 2 lots, but again, you got a little less than 47 feet divided by 2. You're not going to get the 30-foot there, so that would just be another area to have a variance, so.
So then you'd have 3.
Right, it'd be never ending,
Yeah,
but so. It was a concept I looked at, and, but you're still into variances no matter what you do. The area disturbance, the plans indicated there's like 2 1/3 acres of, 2.93 acres of disturbance. I'm not sure that included all the driveways. It did around here. It could be a little more than that, but it's less than 5. Unless someone went totally crazy and, a contractor needs to, again, work his way out of here. So by the time you get out to here, you've stabilized this area. Whether the house is done or not, at least you've grown grass. You don't have bare soils that can move about.
And would Gary be responsible for keeping tabs on that they're not disturbing more than they had anticipated? And if that happens, what's our recourse?
Well, that's, through the powers of the building inspector. I think it's a good idea that somebody keeps an eye on it. There is a construction sequencing plan, or there will be, that's, finalized. There will be certain things on the plan that the contractor has to pay attention to. The concept is keep the disturbance around your house. So if you have stockpile of topsoil, it isn't way out in the back 40, it's near where you're disturbing anyway. So minimize, which is also a cost-efficient way of doing things. You aren't treading all over here. This isn't a racetrack for construction equipment. Keep the disturbances close to where you're doing. And I think the more recent layout showed the houses in shorter driveways as opposed to very long driveways. But, fire access, being able to turn around, there's details yet to go through. Some of these things I just put pending, more engineering and detailed plans will be coming.
All right, well, I think at this point, I'd like to open the public hearing, because I'm sure they've been patient.
There's a couple more things I could perhaps address that there were, because I read the resident letters,
Okay.
concern letters, and they're in the DEC Stormwater Design Manual, 2020. I didn't bring a copy of it, but I got it on my phone, and I hope I don't have to look at it, because I should have held it this way instead of this way. But there's an Appendix D that is who can be covered under the construction activity permit. I love their wording. They make it sound like it's a real opportunity that you're going to miss if you aren't covered under this. Not so much, but the residential development, there are some things that are exempt from a full SWIP. A full SWIP includes treatment, water quality treatment, and water quantity treatment, which your larger projects will have that. But one of the caveats is, everybody's doing what's called a basic SWIP. How do you keep sediment from going off your site? You're not tracking it out to the road. You have stabilized construction entrances. You got silt fence. just a number of the basic things, but not entirely, big bioretention basins. That said, and this project applies to that, it qualifies for that, as just needing the basic SWIP. There is a change in impervious area, and there will be in runoff on this site. There's ways to mitigate that, and that I talked about early is either rain gardens, small bioretention basins, basically depressions, not deep, shallow, perhaps broad in the back, but where you can direct some of that impervious drainage to, like your gutter downspouts and stuff. So it isn't just hitting the ground and running in this direction. There's also some things we want to do for diversion. Right on this property line junction, there's a drainage swale showing here that will take some of the drainage from these two lots, not really anybody else. But it's kind of directed here. Drawn on, it's coming on somewhere in here, that drainage swale, so it's not necessarily pointed at the houses, but it's pointed towards the property. What I'd like to see is a drainage swale, and it can be diagonal, that gets it towards a creek instead of Marion Court. Now, does some of the existing, the way it sits now, drain that way and get to Marion Court? Yes, it does. But this is going to be stepped up. You're going to have more building and hard surfaces, so that means more runoff. Means you've got to do something. So we've talked about that. The engineering will get there when it gets there. There has been some test pits. There was 8 test pits done across the site. It's kind of Altamont clays. It wasn't the blue clay where forget about infiltrating everything. It's probably sea soils, and you can do some level of infiltration there. That's the way we mimic natural drainage, particularly in forests, and unless you're on a hillside, it has a chance to infiltrate in the ground, recharge groundwater, be released slowly, and ultimately it gets into the tributary and the Bozenkill and goes down to the reservoir, and where everything's all paved, it gets there lickety-split. That's what we want to kind of avoid. As such, driveways kind of want to, grading and is everything, and there may be a need for some culverts, but generally these driveways kind of want to be cut into where they're at existing grade and not change the drainage patterns to the extent possible. They're going to withstand that drainage by having a stout driveway cross-section, so they won't wash away.
Good.
Almost done. We talked about the sidewalk here. Jeff, we talked about this today. The village has done a bang-up job of doing sidewalk work themselves up on 397 and also on Larch Street in the village. They've gotten grants to do something, really only got compensated for the materials, didn't get compensated for their labor, which baffles me. So when we get to do Fairview in a few days, we're going to be up there doing a new sidewalk. We bid it out. So you really aren't seeing the way this is going to go. If this happens, it's going to be, through either escrow or Troy's contractor building it. But if it's an escrow, it really should be based on a publicly bid unit price. What's it going to take for you to go through design plans, put it out on the street, and then have a contractor do it? And the difference is, private, you may be around $50 a foot finished, we're up at about $87 a foot up on the Fairview. And that was actually a good price. I generally say 100 to 125 if you're doing some handicap ramps and some other things. But the, I think if it's, if Troy isn't putting it in himself, then, you know, escrow should reflect what it would cost for doing it on a public bid basis. And a lot of these other things are pending. But I am concerned about the Schoharie Plank Road. It is narrow. Having a sidewalk would at least get, because I walk here too, I love it. It's the loop. Usually ends with a ice cream cone. But it's narrow. We don't want construction activity coming down here.
No.
Even the trusses, when they get to there, is maintain this road, build your way out, and, you know, don't, because that's old pavement. The village used to do micro paving, which is kind of it looks nice for a while, but it doesn't necessarily last, particularly, you know, concrete trucks, garbage trucks, snowplow trucks, they are the Achilles heel of pavement. You could run 1,000 cars up here every day and it's not going to make a difference. It's the heavy axle loads of major trucks. So
Okay,
that's
thank you,
pretty much
Rob.
it.
Right.
Okay,
We're now going to open the public hearing, just have to read the legal notice. Please take notice that the Village of Altamont Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on May 23rd, 2023 at 7 p.m. at the Altamont Village Community Room, 115 Main Street, Altamont, New York, to hear all interested persons on the proposed application of CM Fox Living Solutions LLC, the applicant, for area variances to allow the creation of 4 new keyhole lots with approximately 16 feet of road frontage. The minimum road frontage requirement is 30 feet for a keyhole lot. The property is identified as SBL 37.14-3.6.1 and is located on the northeasterly side of New York State Route 397, Western Ave, and Schoharie Plank Road West intersection. It is in the village's R15 zoning district. The request for area variances is being proposed in connection with the applicant's proposed subdivision of a 13.01 acre lot into 11 lots, which includes the 4 keyhole lots that are subject to the variance request. The applicant proposes to build a total of 10 residents on the newly created lots. One of the lots is already improved with a single-family home. The applicant is also requesting a number of lot line adjustments as part of the project. All persons desiring to speak either on behalf of or in opposition to said proposed area variances shall be heard by either attending the public hearing or by submitting written comments in advance of the public hearing to the ZBA secretary. Copies of the application materials are available for review at the offices of the village clerk, located at 115 Main Street, Altamont, New York, 12009, and will be available on the village website by Friday, May 26, 2023, at www.altamontvillage.org.
thank you. Okay, with that, I have Joe Connors. Would you like to come up and speak? Step up to the microphone, please state your name, and if you wish to, your address.
Thank you, Chair and board members, council, developer applicant, Mr. Grant. I'm here with my wife, Jaya. My name's Joe Connors. I live at 6393 Gun Club Road, which is right along this area, the northern area that is adjacent to this section of the property. Bosenkill Park is across the street from us on Gun Club Road. There are 3 preliminary issues I'd like to address, and then 3 reasons why we are here to oppose the requested variances. The first preliminary matter is we filed a letter this morning. I made copies for the board member. We'd ask that that be made part of the record and included on the website. Both my wife and I are attorneys, and we affirm under penalty of perjury that all the factual allegations in that letter are true. The second item is that we request that additional information be made part of the record of this hearing, including the videos and minutes of previous conversations that the board had with the applicant.
That is on the website.
And we'd ask that it be part of the record for this hearing, including the videos and minutes, 9/27/22, January 4th, 23, March 28th, 23, and April 25th, 23. The third preliminary matter is, to the extent that there is a, I believe Mr. Grant said that he had a February 21st, 23rd letter to CM Fox, initial engineering assessment. I didn't see that on the web page. I'd ask that that be made of the, part of the record for the hearing here tonight.
February 23rd, you said?
February 21st, 23rd was the date that was given, or any other written communications between your independent engineer and CM Fox, so that the public is fully informed of the concerns. The three reasons we oppose the variance: first, it's based on additional factual information that I'll highlight. The legal guidelines that apply to requesting a variance also supported denial of the variance. And there's also significant environmental impact associated with the variance and the project as a whole. So, quick highlight of the factual information. Some of it is in the letter. We have 3 dogs. Sometimes I walk the dogs along the border of our property here. The dogs always come back with muddy paws. It's a wet area. There's surface water. It's saturated. It leads me to believe that there's a high water table in the area.
You're talking about the area to be built, the acreage,
Yes.
which part?
Yes, lots 1, lots 2. I've been over here before. It's wet in these lots 1, 2, and 6 especially is where I've noticed it to be very muddy and wet. The other factual matter is, I know you're going to be looking at how the impact on neighborhoods. I'd encourage you to look at the sizes of the different lots and the number of houses that are on the houses adjacent to the proposed project. Our neighbors are great neighbors, but we all appreciate our privacy. You'll find that the neighborhood, Gun Club Road, Marion Court, include big lots, some over 2 acres. Ours is over 5 acres with 1 house on them. That's relevant to your consideration. The other thing that I'd like to highlight in terms of factual matters is the abundant wildlife in the area, including bats that fly over all this property all the time in the summer. I'm not a biologist, but I believe that they might be endangered long-eared bats that are going to be considered an important consideration.
There is a certain time when they can't do anything
Right.
because of that.
Okay, thank you. The other important thing, I think you could take notice of it, is currently we have an unobstructed view of the Helderberg Escarpment, part of a state park, which is a special feature and consideration. And finally, in terms, there's been some talk already about pedestrian traffic in this area, but there's also a lot of pedestrians that walk over to Bozenkill Park. So I'm assuming that there's going to be families moving into the area under this proposal, and I'd ask that you consider their safety too. It's very dangerous. We've expressed concern in the past that cars go too fast in the area. There's no sidewalks along Gun Club Road to the park. That should be a consideration, looking at the big picture about how this property connects with the broader community. We don't want anyone to get hurt. Moving on to some of the legal issues. I don't think I need to lecture the board on the law, but I just want to highlight a couple things. First, it's important to keep in mind that the burden of presenting evidence in support of the variance is on the applicant. And especially at the last public meeting, the board gave the applicant notice of that and encouraged it to provide additional information. The record for tonight's meeting includes a letter from your engineer with several concerns, and the answers to several of the concerns was, we're not going to answer that until a variance is granted. So the information that you need to make a full and fair assessment on the variance isn't there. That in and of itself supports denying the variance. Specifically, information about studies about the water table, information about a complete stormwater pollution prevention plan. There was some talk about a 5-acre limitation, but I encourage you to look at the DEC guidelines, and I believe it's less than 5 acres of soil that's affected that can trigger a full stormwater pollution prevention program. The board rightfully had concerns about public safety, fire safety, the widths of certain driveways or roads. I think there is a factual and legal issue here about whether or not the proposal really is calling for a private road with easement. If you look at the definitions of terms that I've outlined in my letter. Of course, if it's a road, there's additional requirements about sidewalks and lighting that needs to be considered as part of the overall assessment here. The board also asked for a site assessment. If there's going to be multiple exits and entrances to this subdivision, more than 2 that's allowed under the current village code, there needs to be a safety assessment about both the traffic and the site view. That was requested and not provided. So that information wasn't provided. I'd also, looking at the 4 or 5 factors that you need to consider in granting the variance will result in an undesirable change in the neighborhood. It would open up property that typically might have 1 to 3 houses on it to 10 houses. It changes the nature of the neighborhood. It changes the views of the escarpment that I mentioned before. So there's certainly a significant impact there. The second factor are alternatives available. We've heard from your engineer that yes, other ideas have been floated. There's ways to build different roads, and there's ways to vary the entrances and exits to make this work. That's not before you right now, but it should be considered that it is possible. The response that's on the record from the applicant was dollars and cents, it doesn't make sense. But that in and of itself is not a defense against there being alternative methods to achieve a fuller benefit of the land. I think it's important to note that when you buy property, you're not guaranteed to do whatever you want with it. You need to comply with the environmental regulations and the village code. So there's no absolute right to put 23 to 24 houses on it, as has previously been suggested if this proposal doesn't go through. So there are alternatives available. The third factor is the variance substantial. Yes, it's asking for about a 50% reduction in the size of frontage property. I've cited in my letter to the board where one of the factors is percentages and the degree of variation from codes, and other cases have said that even a smaller deviation from the code is a substantial variance. Is there an adverse impact on the environment? You all know, I'm assuming, that one or more significant adverse environmental impacts should lead to a positive declaration. I'm looking at the magnitude and importance of the impacts at stake. There's at least 4 different environmental impacts that I can list. Certainly the water and flooding issue that has been raised. The presence of an endangered species in the area. The value of the aesthetic resource at stake. The Helderberg Escarpment State Park definitely is, that's affected by this project. And the community character. Courts have consistently indicated that boards need to look at comprehensive plans to get a sense of the community character and the quiet, rural nature of Altamont and Guilderland as a sort of a dual resident. I know that's sort of not legally possible, but the village town line crosses through our backyard. So both Guilderland and Altamont treasure that country type environment, which will be affected by this. The next factor is this self-created? Yes, clearly it is. The property doesn't need to be used in a way that the variance requests. The property was purchased by a sophisticated buyer that was knowledgeable about what the rules were when the property was bought. A risk was made. A risk was made that the property is going to be bought, and I hope that the village board allows me to do more than what the parameters currently allow, that a variance would be granted. So it's a self-created problem here. The guidelines shouldn't be bended in a manner that goes against the neighbor's interests. And I believe you're going to hear from other neighbors, and the record that I've seen online is replete with neighbors that don't support this. I'd be surprised if any neighbors do support it.
I'm going to have to ask you to kind of wrap it
Yeah,
up.
I will. I
We
got
have
like
a-
30 seconds. So for all these reasons, the variance should be denied. If for any reason you find that there is evidence in the record to support it, we would ask that additional mitigation factors be considered, including having a berm constructed along the back adjacent line of our property with conifer plantings on it. There is a current tree line there, but the trees are not conifers. Their leaves fall off in the winter. Most of the trees are dead. Maybe that's why the bats are there. They like all the insects. We believe in supporting that. So the fact that there are some trees there right now doesn't justify not allowing that type of protection. If the board decides to keep this hearing open, which I understand that it does, I'd ask that if any new evidence is submitted to the board, that the public be provided the opportunity to comment on any new evidence before a final decision is made. Thank you for your attention and your service to the community. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, I think next up we have Ben Fox.
Good evening. I'm Ben Fox. I live at 115 Schoharie Plank Road West, which is right there, adjacent to the proposed variance. Live there with my wife, my 2 children, and we love being members of the village and the community. We had the opportunity to meet with Troy this past week. He met with me, Sharon, and Mark and Deb. We discussed some other plot adjustments, which aren't listed here, obviously, because this was developed back in September, October. But what I have gathered from Troy is that he wants to build back here, either for himself his family, or for development. And everything Troy wants to do, he wants to do it as best as he can. And I think the board sitting here also wants to do everything the best that they can. Because I have, we've had this agreement, I am in a beneficial spot. So anything I say to you, I do not want to impact your decision. But I just want you to do what is right and not what's easy. And I believe that this variance shouldn't be approved until there's a full environmental assessment and all the other community members' comments are addressed.
It can't be. By law,
Perfect.
we cannot approve a variance before going through seeker.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Mark, and I'm sorry I can't read your last name. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Mark Nagany. I'm not as tall as Ben. I live with my wife Deborah at 113 Schoharie Plank. My family has lived there since the 1950s. We've watched the flooding and the devastation that little creek can do when it wants to. That's as far as the houses on Schoharie Plank. Basically, what happens when that creek goes over, which I can personally remember 7 times, okay? It overflows just below Lincoln Avenue, all right? It then flows down along Schoharie Plank, then it goes over to 397, and then what happens is the water flows down Schoharie Plank, and then right about where the Adams live, which would be between 105 and 103 Schoharie Plank, it splits, and then it's 2 streams. There's the one that's coming down Schoharie Plank and the one that's running behind the houses. They then all merge into one big stream, which is coming down behind 105 to 115 Schoharie Plank.
Can you point that out on the map there, Mark, please? Just to give everybody a visual.
Basically, the water comes from here, flows here, and then flows all the way back, and then flows out there. I've seen
between
once where
yours
it's
and
gone
Johnson's.
this way to the creek, but it all comes out here and goes back to the creek. In the area where the driveways are being proposed, I've seen the water 5 feet deep there. Okay? As far as behind my house, which is right here, I've seen the water 3.5 feet deep, running behind there. As a matter of fact, the last time, it distributed about 2.5 quart of firewood, everything down. That is my concern. I've seen the devastation that flooding does, and I'd be very curious to see how it's gonna get engineered so that's not what happens. Because, that's the flow of the water, it's been there for a long time. I know there was this brief discussion, and it wasn't in my original notes, and that was about the bridge that goes from Euclid to Schoharie Plank. The bridge that is there now was put in by the village. Up until that point, it was put in by the neighbors. Going back to I think the first bridge went in there in 1961 to 1962. Because I remember going to elementary school, and it depended on how we went to school. Could we jump across the rocks, or do we have to go over Lincoln Avenue and down that way? The original bridge was put in by the neighbors. And it was replaced, it was washed out and replaced a number of times. The only two bridges that have really lasted there was the one that the village put in there and the one that I put in there as a college project. We used a couple telephone poles and we're able to span it and put it up high enough that it didn't wash away. Unfortunately, it did. So now where the village bridge is now. The water table, I noticed where the engineer, and they dug their holes out there. I'm very familiar with the water table, at least where my house sits. I finally stopped pumping water through my sump pump 2 days ago. It started this year early, started in October, lasted all winter. Back years ago, it used to not really start until springtime because the frost was much deeper than it is now. But basically, my pump is set about 4.5 feet below where my front yard is. So that's where the water table is. And if it rains hard in the summer, I pump water at that time also, but not all day long, right, Deb? The other thing I think the board needs to consider, I know we're discussing the 20-foot driveway for these 4 homes. It's going on to a 16-foot wide road that basically 2 cars can pass, but if they're real careful. What the neighbors all do is, you see somebody coming down or up, you pull over, and we let the other driver through. My other concern is water. There's been no construction activity on a Square Plank except for what was done on the other side of the creek across from 105. That's where all the construction project was. In the last year, we've had 4 breaks from there down Square Plank. We had 1 break that I think broke 3 times. And that's right where that driveway is going, in the vicinity where that driveway is going.
The proposed driveway?
The proposed driveway is going. Basically, it's just a little bit above where the proposed driveway is. You'd have to have your water guys tell them exactly where it was, but I know because they dug it up, 2-3 times?
We replaced that whole thing, that's all brand new pipe now.
Yeah.
Does that new driveway affect that?
But then again, above that, which is at 115, there was a break. And then in front of 105, there was a break. I may be wrong as far as numbers, but there was a lot of breaks. So there's concern about, our aging infrastructure, join the Northeast. If we are having breaks on a pressurized line, I'm curious to see what's happening in the sanitary sewer line, which is not pressurized. But we're going to add more volume to it. The proposal is to add more volume. Okay, and the last one, because I don't want to take up everybody's night, is the comprehensive plan, or not, well, it's comprehensive plan, I may be incorrect, but the whole idea was to make the village walkable and bikeable and that kind of stuff. There are, I can't tell you the number of baby carriages I go up and down Schoharie Plank Road now. Never used to see that many. We're getting a younger group of homeowners with more kids, and I'm concerned about how we're going to maintain that walkability in our village. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, next person, Deb Katz.
Poor thing. Oh, dear.
You want to lower, can she lower the mic and sit? Would you still be able to see her? You sure?
Thanks, thanks. Thank you. Thank you to the board, to Chairwoman Hext. You know, my brain knows two things at once. Oops.
There you go.
Okay. And to Brad, you answered a lot of questions for me that I had. I've been grappling with trying to reconcile the DEC website that says disturbing 1 acre of ground soil requires a stormwater prevention plan, so thank you.
That's commercial, though. That's commercial.
Yeah.
Residential is fine.
Okay. And Troy, thank you for taking the time to meet with us all and be able to talk directly and, you know, voice our concerns and share some thoughts with you. My concerns have been the same from day one, really. If you look at the overall, as Mark mentioned, the 2006 Village Comprehensive Plan, that really talks to the unique nature of the village, the unique character of the village, the walkability of the village. And, you know, development is inevitable, but I think we have a responsibility at some point to, again, take a look at the bigger picture and say, we have school buses that are stopping, making multiple stops on that section of Western Avenue. We've got kids that are crossing there, and there are no sidewalks or crosswalks. Cars are going faster. People are distracted. They're mad. They're just not taking care when they get behind that wheel. We've had a child get hit in the village this summer. We've had, Ben and Heather, the kids, walking the kids to school, even over the crosswalks and being informed pedestrians almost get hit. That section of Western Avenue is a concern because once folks are coming down the hill and they hit that four-way intersection, they're going fast. And they've got to come around that curve, and that's where one of the entrances to the proposed subdivision will be. And there are school bus stops, like I say, all along that section. So pedestrian safety is a legitimate concern, even if we're talking about a small amount of houses going in. It doesn't matter. We're still looking at least 2 vehicles per household these days. And as Mark said, on Schoharie Plank West, we see another car coming, we pull over. I think that these concerns might not be so highlighted without having gone through the recent experience of a large residential construction project right across the creek from us. And, my concern is taking in the consideration of the quality of life and going through that experience. We all live here in Altamont because we love Altamont. I worked a very long, stressful career, and my retirement is just a true blessing. And I'd like to be able to just sit out in my backyard and enjoy my garden, read a book out there. Right now, that's not possible. And it hasn't been possible for 2 years because of the amount of construction sounds that are going on. seemingly almost every day. So it's a quality of life issue, and I just ask us as a community, what do we really want Altamont to be? And that takes some decisions and looking towards the future and looking at that comprehensive plan. And, you know, even though it's an inspirational document as opposed to, you know, a book of regulations, it still has to have some significance for us as a community. So that's on the personal side. You know, from a technical perspective, I'm also concerned about the water supply, the impact to the infrastructure, and you know, the flooding. It's really an issue. I don't want to completely speak for Sharon Foreman, but the Altamont Fire Department was there, what was it, Christmas Eve day, pumping out her basement because she was flooded. So, you know, those repeated calls to, you know, help us understand what can be done to avoid impact to our property and any additional, you know, cost or repairs or burden of that we'll have to bear in light of the project. My final comment is that the proposed access from the 4 lots out back onto Schoharie Plank Road, again, open up almost directly across from the footbridge. And that's where the kids play, and that's where they stop to hang out at the creek on the way home from school. It's a safe spot for some of our senior citizens that live on Euclid to make a slow walk up to the end of Schoharie Plank and back. And again, I know we're not talking a high volume of additional traffic, but all it takes is one vehicle. And going right into the path of what has been an established, you know, safe pedestrian route for many, many decades. So thank you again for your time. This is an important job, and we appreciate all the time and the thought that goes into it. Thank you.
Deb, don't forget your questions.
Oh, dear.
I do have one letter from a resident that could not be here tonight, and I don't normally do this, but she was very passionate and very upset that she couldn't be here. So I agreed to at least read the finer points. It's from Deb Johnson and Kim Johnson, 117 Schoharie Plank Road West. Her concerns are flooding. Have flooding issues been readdressed with new frequency of the 100-year floodplain? Has flood data been incorporated into the floodplain regulations of all jurisdictions? Are there infrastructure upgrades to the water system since the water main break last year? And I think Jeff said yes. Will the road meet criteria for A, school bus transportation, garbage pickup, snow removal, mail and package delivery, two-way residential traffic, and sidewalks? What recourse do we have if we are harmed by this action? And I think what she meant that if the building of the new homes results in any more flooding than they would normally have, is there a recourse? For the above concerns, I am against this action. And that is again signed Deb Johnson and Kim Johnson. Does anybody on the board have anything to add at this point?
I just had a question.
For?
Well, anyone who can answer it, really. Does anyone know the speed limit?
Yes, but you were, yeah. We asked anyone that wanted to speak to sign up. Well, the reason was so that I would know whether I had to limit the amount of times that people spoke. Do we have a lot more?
Yes.
Did you want to speak, Dean?
Yeah. Can I just ask my question real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
The speed limit at the site of the proposed entrance on, not Schoharie Plank, Western,
30.
it's still 30 there? Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't change to 35 until you get to split
The
with
hill.
gun club.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Dean Whalen, 125 Lincoln Avenue, Altamont. First, I want to mention that I have to acknowledge that this is a very clever plan. It's a very clever use of the property, given the limitations of the property. But it really does, and you may have discussed this in earlier meetings, it really totally depends on a major variance for keyhole lots. Keyhole lots themselves are kind of an anachronism in a code that usually is done because a larger parcel that had a larger piece of property along a road or whatever right away carved out previously a parcel along that road and left over 30 feet or more to the back of the property. That's kind of the condition that's here, both on both roads. But this whole thing depends on carving up something into 16-foot right-of-ways, keyhole lots, which, again, every issue is unique, but it really does create a precedent. I mean, again, as I said, the intent of having keyhole lots allowed in the village was to address very odd conditions that may have been created previously with farmland, which is to some degree true here, but requiring the 30-foot right-of-way as a minimum. So I think the board is aware of that, but I think they need to consider that. And I mention all this because there's also some documentation that was in some of the public comments about, well, you know, you could do more because it's an R15 zone with a public road. That's probably true. I'm not sure it's actually 24 lots, and my question would be, has that really been presented as an alternative? I think Brad mentioned that earlier in his comments. I think it behooves the board to, if it hasn't seen that prior, to request some sort of at least sketch plan of what the impact would be with legal lots, a legal road, probably a public road, to maximize this lot without requiring these very minimum keyhole lots. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dean. Okay. Just been given the conventional layout plans by Steve, just to clarify what that was. All right, I did not mean to not include everyone. If there is someone else?
Ted Newman, 114 Lark Street. I would just like to repeat and reiterate the concerns that the other residents have had. To me, it's about water and water. We have too much when it rains, and there's no way that this is not going to cause more flooding, in my opinion. The second water aspect is, it seems like we don't have enough water in Altamont in our water system. Last summer, we were scared that we were going to have to shut down water, and we wouldn't have anything to drink or bathe in. And now we're going to add more to the system. I don't understand it. Just doesn't make sense. So that's all I wanted to say. Just water and water.
Jeff, do you want to address that at all? As far as, I know how you do the calculations. I don't have them with me, though. No, I know, but basically what you do is the buildable land within Altamont, how many possible homes could go there, and what our water system could support. I think that's the way it's done. And I think last year, part of the problem was we were down one well, two wells.
We only have 3 in the village, and last year we were down to just 1.
So, I mean, that
was a big concern.
Yeah, it was a big concern, and it was an unusual situation, I hope.
It wasn't a matter of not having enough water, it was not being able to use those 2 wells. Which B&L is working on right now as we speak.
Now, we still have the water restrictions every year, right, starting in May? Yeah, so, okay. As far as watering lawns and gardens and whatnot.
Sometimes just to alleviate some of
Yeah,
the
just some of the pressure, yeah. Okay.
7 a.m. to 9 a.m., and then 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., depending on your address.
Yeah, I'm
So
not
odd,
watering my
even,
lawn, I
blah,
mow
blah,
it
blah.
enough.
Okay. If there's no one else,
There is.
oh, how did I miss you? Come on up.
I see that we've had an additional document added there. It wasn't on the agenda, and I'm not sure it's on the website.
I don't know. I didn't look at it. Is this on the website, Steve?
No, it's not.
We won't review this tonight? We won't even look at it tonight? Ginger will be sure that it gets put on the website.
Can you explain to us what,
Steve?
Steve, can you go up to the microphone and explain to everybody? Thank you.
You want to put it up? No, we don't have to close public comment yet. Just get a public hearing.
I'm Steve Walrath again. This here is, this is a conventional layout based on the existing R15 regulations. I've got 26 lots here. I know we'll lose 2 because we would have to do something with stormwater. So maxing out the site, we could get 24 lots here. And this would be a public highway coming through from Western Avenue to Schoharie Plank Road. And this layout requires no variances. This,
So that would be just one entrance, or would,
it would be 2 entrances.
Still 2
There'd
entrances.
be 2 entrances. Obviously, we'd probably have to do some work on Schoharie Plank Road, but this conforms to the regulations. And like I said, I came up with 26, and like I said, we probably would lose 2 for stormwater basin areas. So the site has a potential for 24 lots. And Troy does not want to do this. Troy wants to do the 11 lots with 10 new houses. And I can certainly provide this to you, so you can put it on the website.
good, thank you.
You're welcome. But even like, putting a public highway out here to Schoharie Plank Road, there's more than 60 feet there, which is the minimum width required for a public highway. So, like I said, I'll provide you a copy of it, a PDF.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay.
So,
Anybody want me to leave this, or?
just to make a note for the record, so the traditional layout would not require the variance, but we would still be going through seeker review as well as site plan review.
Oh, yes, yeah, oh, definitely.
So
Yeah,
I'm
this would.
just saying it's not, it's just because it's,
No, I'm just saying it's doable under the current zoning. Obviously, it would have to be engineered, designed, reviewed and reviewed and, before it could get approved.
Yeah.
But it works as far as a conventional layout, maxing out the site, which is, again, I'll say, this is not what Troy wants to do. This is what could be done if somebody wanted to do it.
What would they be, what would be the lot size on those?
These are a minimum of 15,000 square feet. It's like all of these here, these are all 15,000 square feet. So it's like back in here, this is like, well, here's the hedgerow right here. This right here is what Troy wants to do 4 lots on.
Right.
All of these right here. So this gives you an idea of what could be done. We're not proposing this, but it's just a visual that this is what could be done.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
You'll have that to the office,
I'll have that to Gary's email. You'll have it by Thursday when you're in the office.
thank you, Steve. And so, just for the record, what was your name?
Dave Glass, 100 Schoharie Plank Road West.
Did you get that, Ginger?
No, how do you spell your last name, sir?
Thanks, Steve.
Your last name, please?
Glass, G-L-A-S-S.
Thank you.
One more person?
This will be short.
Come on down.
My name is Bill Vinson. I live at 133 Western Avenue. I'm probably the only representative from Western Avenue, which is, right here. Oh, I'm sorry, right here, right up at the end. His driveway, the road will go in on the right-hand side of my our property. When my wife and I moved in there 21 years ago, we bought the home from Colleen Kiltz. I asked her about what's going on with the back field. They owned it. And she says it had to be all subdivided. It had to be all bought at once. It couldn't be subdivided. And here we are 21 years later. We knew this moving in, that at some point in time, this day would come. I'm not surprised. You know, yes, it is 30 miles an hour right there because every weekend Jill pulls people right over and they park right in front of our house. Oh, she's got another one. And then we're on mowing the lawn. Yep, there's another one. You know, so it is 30. But it just, you know, I knew it was going to happen. And I spoke to the individual that was digging on the holes out there. Hey, you know, we're wide open. We get the view in the back there. I guess we'll see every piece of wood coming in and out of there from starting from the back and working the way up in the front. To me, you know, good luck to the board. You know, I'm going to not say yes or no against it. And good luck to Troy. You know, I'm not going to say yes or no against him. Right now, I really don't have any gripe about it. Like I said, we were prepared for this at some point in time. This was going to happen, and here we are. You know, that's all I got to say. You know, it's good luck to the board and good luck to Troy, you know. And we'll see what happens and see how big the houses are, and they'll make us look like we're in a little tent and stuff like that. So, but anyway, you know, good luck to the board and good luck to Troy. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. That's it. Don't want to. Board have any questions? Council, you have anything? At this point, I would like to make a motion to keep the public hearing open. That'll give us the opportunity, give the residents opportunities to review any new information that might come in and have public comment at the next meeting.
Some letters were not submitted until this past Monday, and I think there might have just been a disconnect in terms of what is the date by which letters need to be resubmitted so that they are in the board's packet before the next meeting. Is there a
Usually we ask, in order for you to get them up on the website, is like 10 days before.
They do, yeah, for materials for anything to come into the board to be on the next meeting, it has to be in 2 weeks before. But to get on the website, you know, anything that came in that was up till Friday afternoon, like Friday at noon, got on the website. If it came in today, you know, then like, it doesn't, the board just doesn't get a chance to get to read it or go on the website or anything.
Yeah, so I'll pass the word that
But if it could be before that, because, you know, that's why the legal notice goes out 10 days before, so it gives everybody a chance to respond in time to get it to the board and
And we, you know, we do try to read every letter. And, you know, if you have any questions, call me, email me, whatever. Anybody can do that, right? Open book. So could I have a motion then to keep the, one note though, there will not be another legal notice posted because we're keeping the public hearing open. We're not required to publish another legal notice. So it'll be the 27th, June 27th at 7 p.m. will be the next public hearing. Try to get any more questions or anything that you have in time, letters, anything like that. Given that, could I have a motion to keep the public hearing open until June 27th?
I make that motion.
I'll second.
So that was Barb and Robert?
In favor.
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor? In favor. Thank you to everyone for coming and for lasting as long as you did. There's a couple things in front of you that took a while. I also thank you for your input. I think it's really important for residents to be involved. And again, if anybody has any questions, just send me an email. Be happy to help. Okay. Any other business anyone wants to address before we look at the minutes from April 25th? No? Okay. Then, review of the minutes from April 25th. Did everyone have a chance to read them? Does anybody have any comments? They were long. Thank you, Ginger. No? We just fumbling and bumbling through?
I didn't see anything.
Oh, jeez.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that Barb said?
Yeah, I mumbled. I saw it, wait a second. Highlighted, oh, here. It was near the front. I believe. Okay, let's see. Oh, I know, the asphalt. It says, yeah, the driveway or the asphalt ended.
Other than that, then can I have a motion to approve the minutes from April 25th, 2023?
I'll make that. No.
Danny? Okay, second? Simon?
Sign. Approved.
Okay, roll call, please.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
In favor. Okay, then could I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Robert and James.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
In favor. Thank you, everybody. Don't forget to turn your mic on. Oh, God.
Halfway bedtime,